Yeah, you have to practice it, right? And that's also a leadership skill.
We went through all this list
Yeah.
of bad experiences.
Yeah.
Let's just not do that. The
Yeah.
people has always been the hardest thing.
You have to
Yeah.
sense the moment.
Yes. As you're scaling and growing a business kind of from a startup into a larger company, you get curveballs that you're expecting. It's the people and the personal life things that come at you where you go, oh man, I did not see that coming.
How do you know as you that you actually are a good leader?
It's a really good question. The fact that people are regularly comfortable, coming to me and having a conversation or seeking either advice or some guidance, that tells me more than anything that I'm doing something right.
Welcome to Leadership in Manufacturing Podcast. I'm your host, Sannah Vinding, and in today's episode, we are going to talk about how to overcome key challenges in expanding manufacturing operation across borders. I interviewed Terry Arbaugh. He's the CCO at SECOM, and he's an expert in electronic contract manufacturing. And in this episode, he shares valuable insights on scaling operation across multiple countries. So what are you going to learn? You're going to learn about strategies for navigating global leadership and team dynamics. And what does that mean? We are going to touch on leadership challenges. We're going to talk about strategies to manage unpredictable in people and personal events. You're going to learn about how to effectively embrace cultural difference. We all love that. Communication challenges and also team collaboration across borders. And hey, we all work in this global environment, so you have to listen to this one. So tune in, gain some practical advice and strategies that can help you to become a much better leader within the electronics industry. Enjoy. Welcome to Leadership in Manufacturing Podcast. I'm your host, Sannah Vinding, and this podcast is designed for professionals in manufacturing, supply chain, and the electronics component industry, providing insights to enhance your leadership skills. I have a little favor. Don't forget to subscribe or rate us on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube if you're watching. And you can also follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram. And for past episodes or blog posts, sign up for our newsletters, please visit leadershipinmanufacturing.com. So thank you for tuning in today, and back to the show. I want to introduce today's guest, Terry Arbaugh. He's a seasonal professional with over 13 years of experience in the electronics contract manufacturing industry, currently serving as the Chief Commercial Officer at SECOM. He specializes in hardware new product introduction strategies, ensuring that innovative products are launched on time and within budget. With a strong background in contract manufacturing, product development, project management, and supply chain management, he is dedicated to help businesses navigate complexity and bringing electronic products to the market. So welcome, Terry. I can't wait to hear your insight around leadership skills, your lessons learned, and how to scale businesses internationally.
Thank you, Sannah. Appreciate you having me. Very nice to be here.
Yeah. So, okay, I always want to hear the passion first. So I want to hear, what excites you about the electronics contract manufacturing industry?
I love this question. I'll start personal and I'll come in and bring it back to business if that's okay. I have 3 kids. So I've got a 19-year-old daughter, 15-year-old daughter, 11-year-old son. And so when we're talking to the kids about the future and kind of they'll ask, how are you thinking about what do you want to be in the future? What types of roles do you want to have? And so the way that I think about it, and I'll get back to us, talking to my oldest daughter in particular, as she's in college, like, who do you want your customers to be? Like, who do you want to work with every day? So examples I give are things like, you could be a doctor. Doctor is a super noble profession. You're healing people and all, but quite often the people you are going to be around every day might be in pain. They might be very stressed. They might be very sad. The financial challenges of health issues in this country might be overwhelming, right? So yes, it's a noble profession. And if that's really what you want to do, it's incredible, but just go in with eyes wide open that your days are going to be pretty tough. You're going to be dealing with people that are usually not on their best day, similar to a police officer, maybe a defense attorney, right? So in our world, the people that we get to be around, the people that we are around every day is what is the most inspiring. Everybody we deal with is smarter than I am, which is really cool. Yeah. They are always working on their next thing. And that doesn't always mean cutting edge technology, right? So there's some customers, industrial and consumer and medical products are the types of thing we make. So there's some customers that it's not cutting edge, but it's new. It is their next thing. Everybody's working on an evolution for their product, for their customers, for their business. And being able to be around people that are always working on the next exciting thing, that energy and excitement on a day-to-day basis of the people that we get to be around is what I love the most about this business.
Yeah. I love that answer, right? It's like the whole excitement behind it. So,
Yeah.
so tell me a little bit more about SECOM because we want to touch on, how do you scale? And I know you just went through a big scaling.
Yeah. Yeah. CComp. So we design and manufacture, we say industrial, medical, and consumer products small enough to fit into an oven is usually the really quick pitch. So everything that we manufacture has electronics in it. We do
Hmm.
injection molding. We'll do full box builds for products. Certain things how you might order them from a consumer brand company, they might come from our factory, right? So in the box package, ready to go, maybe on the shelf at a Target or something. And then we also do a lot of industrial and medical products that you may never see, right? That are
Yeah.
kind of behind the scenes. So those are the types of products that we manufacture. We also have an engineering group, so we help companies do product development engineering to get into manufacturing and scale.
Yeah.
I'm located in San Diego, California. That's where our headquarters is, and we have a manufacturing facility in Dongguan, China, and we recently just opened one in Tijuana, Mexico. Right, so that is who we are as CComp, and we help well-funded startups. We help enterprise companies and kind of everything in between
Yeah.
design and manufacture electronic products and manufacture them at a couple different places in the world.
Yeah. That's nice. So now that you went, open up down in Mexico, right? That's like a
Yeah.
scaling. So what's this of scaling your operations? What kind of challenge have you met in this for this project?
Uh, what we
Maybe
do,
more than one,
engineering.
right?
Yeah. Engineering and manufacturing in particular is just hard. If
Yeah.
everybody was in the same building and you're on site doing the development work and the manufacturing on one site, it's really really hard. So
Yeah.
every layer of complexity gets added. So you say, okay, well, we're not on the same site. It's a customer designed product, and our team in San Diego's engineering, the customer might be on the East Coast, factory might be in China. So now you
Yeah.
have distributed workforces and time zones and language barriers and cultural norms,
Yeah.
right? So every layer you add on top makes an already hard thing much harder. So adding the Mexico operation, which is just amazing, by the way. So I could leave this podcast right now, Sannah, and I could be at the factory in less than an hour and a half,
Yeah.
which is really really cool, as opposed to getting on a plane and going going to China.
Yeah.
But you know every bit that you add to the complexity, again, you know now we have a third culture that we're adding in. So we've got the
Yeah.
U.S. culture, we've got the China culture, we've got Mexico operations.
Yeah.
How are we integrating the systems? How are we integrating the supply chain? So our supply chain primarily is in China, where a lot of our buying power is, and we're still buying a lot of components, as many companies are, and shipping those over to be assembled into finished goods into Mexico. So,
Yeah.
how do you set up kind of a whole new system
Yeah.
and a whole new way of operating in Mexico, which is the maquiladora type model, that's really common in this area. So like every layer of just a new bit of operations and adding people and
Yeah.
understanding, how do you do onboarding properly while you also are under the gun to start producing products and shipping for customers,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah. Clock is
Christmas is
ticking,
coming.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Christmas is coming, and, and
Yeah.
and it doesn't care if things are hard or if we're busy.
No, you need to deliver. And it's before
That's
Christmas,
right.
right? No. So
That's right.
do you have an example you can share, right? Where you say it can be it can be a lessons learned or something, right? Where you communicate it globally, right? And saying this actually worked and now this is your setup going forward.
That's worked. You're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So figuring out how we're manufacturing a product currently with our China team,
Yeah.
and then transitioning some of that production to the U.S. Now, most of the business that we're doing in Mexico is new, kind of net new business for CComp, but
Yeah.
there's also products that we're transferring that were being made in China that are transferring over. So the intent and the whole strategy behind setting up the Mexico factory was really to make it as similar as possible to China from the very
Yeah.
beginning. So we bought the same, surface mount lines. So we have the same exact equipment set up in a similar copy paste with the China factory. So
Yeah.
we would make those transition easier.
Yeah.
We can reuse work instructions. So maybe we're
Nice.
translating into different languages,
Yeah.
but the main amount of the work is reusable because of the decisions we made with the equipment
Yeah.
and the layout and how the assembly is done and the separation of operations and staffing in a similar fashion in terms of roles that we have in China to Mexico. So really intentionally designing the Mexico factory, not just from scratch, but to match and take advantage of as much of the existing infrastructure as we can, while also recognizing that this is a new factory and it won't operate the same because of,
Yeah.
again, some of the cultural norms and
Yeah.
things like that. So yeah, that was the strategy behind the setup. I think was a success story, and I think we've handled that really well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I actually really like that you're saying with the same machines, right? Because otherwise, also just to look up the complexity. Oh my God, just
Yeah,
yeah, just keeping it up to date, right? Repairs and oh my, yeah, that just lets it opened up a whole can of box there.
that's right. That's right.
You talked about onboarding. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the onboarding because I know you scale a lot, right? We're hiring new employees into your company. So, do you already have an onboarding program, or are you paving the road right now by doing it?
Yeah, well, we've had it in China. So again, we operate in different regions. So somebody onboarding here on my team in San Diego, for example, is a different experience than onboarding in China, right? So we have those two pretty well defined.
Yeah,
Um, in Mexico, we've just really started production. We were really setting up the first half of the year, setting up all the factory, getting certifications. So we've got our ISO 1345 certification that's getting done here actually in the next couple of weeks. So we've been
yeah,
preparing for that and all the setup and trial runs and everything. So going from setup with a handful of people, call it 20-ish people, 25 people, to by the end of the year, the plan is to have 100 to 120.
yeah,
Right. So creating an onboarding process for that sort of ramp, going
yeah,
from we had 5 at the beginning of the year, and we'll have 120 at the end of the year.
yeah.
Like you've got to have that pretty well defined.
Yes.
um, some of the differences too, for example, one thing, in China, most of our workers live on campus.
Yeah,
Right. In China, it's very common for people to come from long distances and work,
yeah,
in
yeah,
Dongguan or Shenzhen, in those areas where the workforce in Tijuana, all lives fairly local.
yeah,
So we're not housing. There's one meal a day that we're providing, during the day, but we provide transportation, for example. So just understanding all the differences.
yeah,
Um, we are running in Mexico, for example. The shift starts at 6 a.m. and goes till 4,
yeah.
and that's the people wanted that sort of shift because of traffic.
Oh, great. Yeah, you listened.
Right. So
Yeah,
we're doing, we're moving things like that. So onboarding and finding the right types of people that want
yeah,
to work on that shift, and we'll
yeah,
also be doing a second shift on the SMT.
yeah.
Right. So just
Awesome.
identifying all those things to
Yeah,
where we can get people on board in a
yeah,
way that's sustainable for their life and family
yeah.
when they don't
And
live on campus.
it provides that I don't know if that is the work-life balance, right? But it's listening because who wants to sit in traffic, right? If you can move that and
Right.
get that time back, I think that is
Yeah.
just more freedom, more happiness.
Yeah. That's right.
That's awesome.
And I credit that to our plant manager down there, our GM. So he is the local Tijuana guy, and he's been in, he was at a Steel Flash, and he was at Jabil, and he was at Rainbird. So he's been around for a long time, and so he's a
Yeah,
local Tijuana guy. So he knows
he
he
knows.
knows what him and his team and the
Yeah,
people want down
yeah.
there, and he's done a great job
That's
helping
good.
us get started.
You can handpick, right?
Oh yeah, that's
Get
right.
the best of the best.
That's right.
That's what you need to do. So let's touch on cultural as well, because
Mhm.
culture is not, you need to keep fostering or feeding into this culture. So having now that many cultures, um, do you, how do you manage it?
Yeah, really hard. I happen to be wearing a shirt. I'll reference this one. It says, "Happier people make better products."
Yeah.
So this is one of our, kind of internal slogans. But the idea is we just put this slogan on our wall in this office,
Yeah.
and it's just being added, I think, next week to the wall in Mexico in the factory,
Yeah.
and also will be added to the wall at the China factory. So
Okay.
the point behind that is, yes, we understand all the diversity. We want to celebrate all the different cultures we have, but also try to find areas of commonality.
Yeah.
What are we all working towards?
Yeah.
How are we all working together? Right. So we want to try to create um, some some sense of team across cultures and time zones and
Yeah.
locations.
Yeah.
And so that sort of environment, happier people make better products. The second half of that is better products make people happier,
Yeah.
right? Also, so people don't really care, Santa, what we do. Our customers don't really care what we do. They care what we do for them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really all our whole business is. We're manufacturing somebody else's
Yeah.
thing that they're selling to their end customers. And so we've got to make sure that we are all on board with being an extension of our customers' team and executing for the benefit of their business. Helping them execute on their missions is really our mission.
It's the whole customer centric, right? Because we all remember the bad service, but we also remember the extraordinary service. But the one that's just in the middle is blah.
Yeah.
You don't remember it. So it's so important that you stay on the right side doing
That's right.
Exceptional service. So
yeah,
I love that. I have to teach myself, and maybe this is not for the record, but I have to teach myself when I talk to anybody in customer service, no matter where it is, to be nice. Because if I'm a little bit pissed, because that's when I talk to customer service,
right,
it's not their fault, right? It's the process, right?
Yeah,
it's like
that's right.
You have to click so many times on the phone, right, to say I need to talk to somebody because I did check it online, and they're like, "Oh, you can just check it online," and you're like,
right.
"I did it," right?
You're already mad calling, and then you get more mad going through
yeah. So I'm always like, count to 10. It's not their fault.
Yeah. I'll add a piece which you may be able to use. One of our core values that we talk about around here is we call it E cubed.
Yeah.
And it's enjoyably engaged in the experience.
Ooh.
Right. So again, going back to what we say, it's really hard what we do.
Yeah.
Everything is really hard.
Yeah.
Right. There's pressure. There's high expectations. You're dealing with 100, 200 vendors. Right. You're trying to bring all the components together at the same time to do a complex manufacturing process and deliver on time without any surprises and all that. So when we run into hard situations, let's not be surprised. What we do is hard, right? Let's be enjoyably engaged in this. Like, this is a tough thing. We are signing up to do tough things. So when we run into tough things, let's not go, "Oh man, that was really tough." Like, yes, we know that's how it's going to be. Let's lean into it. And if there is bad news or a tough situation, how do we handle it? Bad news rots in our world. It just gets worse. So how do we handle that conversation, and tell the customer right away, "Hey, this is what's going on. This is what happened. The supplier decommitted. A warehouse of some component caught on fire," right? There's been
what do you do?
There's been so many things. There's a strike at the port, so suddenly the container can't get in and it's just sitting there. Like, how do you handle all of those difficult experiences? Well, first of all, let's not be surprised by them. Let's know they happen. And then let's communicate proactively and figure out, with our customers how we're gonna solve it, how we're gonna get past it. So that is one thing that is really important to all of us. And from a management perspective too, that is something we can kind of always lean on. It's part of the core values of the company. We know what we signed up for.
And the more you can be transparent to the customer, saying, "Hey, this is the situation. We know we're making the plan." So if you don't have that plan in motion at that second, but just communicating, saying we're working on it, is so beneficial, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Everybody can adjust. And some news is really bad, right? So some things happen in the manufacturing space and electronics in a global, international supply chain and all the things we do. You'll run into something. So how you handle those situations, how you can collectively plan and adjust and recover is super important. And it should be. It's not that it's always fun in every one of those situations, but like let's lean in and go, "Oh man, let's not go shy away from it, and let's not tell them and see what happens."
Maybe they don't. Maybe they won't see it. I'm like, come on.
No. Let's
everybody will find out. Come on.
That's right.
So that actually gets me to this question of when you have this where you need to pivot, if that's what we're calling it. Do you spend time afterwards to say, "Hey, what was actually the lessons learned? Is there anything we should create and saying this is our SOP or this is the way we communicate?" Do you spend time on that?
Yes, absolutely. Both in very small ways and in large ways. And so my background, Santa, initially was sales. I always joke that I complained enough about our marketing that our CEO said, "Fine, you do it." Right. So that's my promotion to sales and marketing. And then I also manage project management, right? So all the kind of customer facing things. So before and after every meeting, even just Zoom calls or meetings in person with customers,
Yeah.
the pre-game, what are we going to do? What are we going to talk about? What is kind of the win coming out of this meeting? You don't, in our world, sales cycle is really long. You don't walk in and give a pitch and then walk out with a PO,
Yeah.
right? So
No.
what is today? What are we trying to accomplish? What do we need to leave the customer with, for example?
Yeah.
And then right after that meeting, how'd it go? Did we do it? Did we accomplish our goals? What could I have done better?
Yeah.
What could you have done better? And so in really quick, small bursts, we're constantly doing that.
Yeah.
And then of course at a larger scale too, from we've done an engineering engagement that was 12 months or 18 months, and you have the full electrical, mechanical, firmware, program, test, packaging. You have all the full product development with that customer engagement. How did it go? What did we learn? What do we do better? Where are our weaknesses? Where are areas for improvement? And then of course on the manufacturing level, that's just part of their DNA. The manufacturing teams in each of the factories, almost all they do is create a process, start running it, and then optimizing it, improving it, kind of just continuous. So that's just part of the DNA of that world. So it's super important for us to mirror that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I really like that, because it's so important to do that reflection, and it can make you much more efficient, right? Even though you're saying, I don't have time for it, it in the long run, right? You need to sit down and slow down and saying, okay, what did we learn? And then optimize the processes like that. And then you will be much more efficient. And again, right, then there will be another pivot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not that it will never end. So
yeah, you're never done.
Yeah, you're never done. It's like, damn it, right? No.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I wish I could be done sometimes. Yeah.
No, then all the days will be too boring if it was just
That's
this.
right.
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about leadership skill set. So which one, if you have to list a few, what on your your list of saying this is what you're looking for when you're looking at leadership skills?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Um, let's see. Painting the vision. I think so. Everybody can see where we're headed.
Yeah.
I think is really, really important. Our CEO does a wonderful job of this, and I give him a lot of credit for kind of painting what is SECOM, what are we trying to accomplish, where are we going, so everybody can kind of work towards that goal. So I think that vision casting, if you want to call it that, and then communicating that out to the company is really important, because when you have that framework, then when you're making decisions, good and bad, as you're scaling, right? Not everything is roses, right? There's times you got to make hard decisions with people or budgets.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can communicate those decisions and how they are an integral part of this vision.
Yeah.
Communicating that out in that way. So if you have the vision and then the communication, the transparent kind of communication of what's going on in the company, I think is really, really valuable. So those two things are where I'd start.
Yeah, I like that. So what do you think, if you're looking at the electronics manufacturing industry, what have we learned in the recent years? Because it's been a lot of disruption.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, for us, there's been a huge exodus, if you want to call that, out of China.
Yeah.
For a lot of companies. And I don't want to overstate that, because China is still the manufacturing capital of the world for the electronics industry. So from a supply chain, where do you get all your components and materials? Most companies, even when they're manufacturing outside of China, are still heavily reliant on China in this world. But in the last few years, one of the biggest disruptions has been the move out of China, really as a result of the tariffs coming in on electronic products from China that started in 2018. So that has been a huge disruption. So learning, how do we as a company and an industry add a plus one? So we still have our China factory. How do we also add another location? Yeah. And I think on a broader scale, a lot of companies and customers are experiencing that same thing. So what countries outside of China would be the best to manufacture in? Southeast Asia picked up a lot of business that left China. Some of the very big guys did really well moving to Vietnam and moving to India or Taiwan or Thailand. There's a lot of even Philippines.
Yeah.
But in Vietnam, for example, some of the not so large companies, not just manufacturers, but customers that try to build their own facilities,
Yeah.
struggled. The workforce is not as large or as skilled by any stretch of the imagination in terms of size, especially as it is in China. Infrastructure is not as great. Power might not be as reliable, and the roads and infrastructure might not be as supportive for large scale, consistent
Yeah.
business. So learning how to operate outside of China has been really interesting. So for us in Tijuana, it's great because it's right here. Tijuana has a really long history and robust history of manufacturing in general. I think historically they've done a lot more larger things that are coming into the market. A
Yeah.
lot of the smaller type products, remote controls, thermostats, things like that, were still coming from China because the cost of shipping those in wasn't great, and there wasn't a tariff at all. So things like large TVs and appliances, um, pool filters, like really large things have been manufactured in Tijuana for a long time. So there's a lot of expertise. But now, how do we manufacture in a cost competitive way the smaller type electronics that historically have been made in China? So
Yeah.
that's the ongoing learning process. How do we get things in and out of Mexico, quickly, in across the border, importing, turn them into finished goods, and import them back into the U.S. So that's been what I think the industry has been learning. How do we add presence outside of China in an effective, efficient, way? And
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah.
China historically is really good at this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But now with but you expanded, right? And you have
That's right.
locations. I think that's a really good setup for SECOM. So that's
Yeah. It's
good
wonderful.
strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So we have, we as CComp, we're agnostic on where we manufacture. It's really our customer's decision. Quite
Yeah.
often that comes down to cost. Sometimes it comes down to just an intangible feeling of, well, I'm concerned about geopolitical, tensions, for example. So we'd rather get out of, out of China. Sometimes it's we want to do both because maybe half or 60% of our business is in the U.S., but we have a healthy business outside the U.S.
Yeah.
And so if China producing products is generally cheaper than Mexico. It's usually, we say, roughly 15 to 18% more expensive to make the finished good in Mexico than it is in China. But if you consider tariffs and freight and all these other things, China's actually, China can be a more expensive total cost of ownership.
Yeah.
For landed in your warehouse.
Yeah.
Right. So Mexico can be more cost effective. So some of our customers, if they have a healthy business outside of the U.S. and don't have to worry about the tariff, they would rather take advantage of the lower cost.
Yeah.
So we might manufacture in both locations. So yeah, it's a
you
great
have like
setup.
a whole menu, right?
Yeah.
What do you need?
Yeah. Well, what would you like?
Yeah, what would you like? No, but that's good. I think it's a really good strategy and clever strategy to say, okay, how do you serve your customer the best way? And this is the way you're going right now in this
That's
direction.
right.
So,
Yeah.
let's get a little bit more personal here because I want to learn how you learn. Because as you just mentioned, right, you're like the chief commercial officer right now, but you had sales background, you had marketing, so a lot of roles, a lot of hats. So how do you learn?
Yeah. I listen to some podcasts. I like to read. I just don't have a lot of time to read books. If I do read at night, Sannah, I quickly get tired.
Yeah.
Is my problem. But I consume like a lot of articles, and I talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm on calls and on the phone just a ton. So I'm constantly learning from vendors, suppliers, design partners, our customers, and trying to stay up to date on
Industry.
what's happening in this world, what's happening in the
Awesome.
industry, what's happening in logistics and tariff codes and fundraising and interest rates, like all the things that impact our customers. I'm kind of constantly trying to keep abreast of.
Yeah.
And so it's just a constant daily thing, really.
Yeah. No, that's good. It's good. So another one here, because again, we can keep learning, which I'm promoting, right, and supporting, and I'm working this talk about saying you need to keep learning. But being a good leader is you can say, hey, I am a good leader, but how do you know as you that you actually are a good leader?
Oh, it's a really good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah.
People bring things to me and talk to me about real life issues. So not just problems at work, but they'll bring things that are going on in their life, and we'll have open dialogue. And I think the fact that people are regularly comfortable, coming to me and
Yeah.
having a conversation or seeking
Yeah.
seeking either advice or some guidance or anything like that, I think that tells me more than anything,
Yeah.
that I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
Right? We all have bouts of imposter syndrome, and you question, is this the right way? Is this the best way? Going back to being a parent, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm doing the best I can, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes you don't always know.
No.
Like, oh man, should
No.
I have probably should
Yeah.
have done that differently.
Yeah.
But I think from the standpoint of my team, comes to me and is really willing to open and share who they are, and ask me for kind of some guidance on things. I think tells me more than anything else.
Yeah. I like that. It's getting a little bit more personal, right, as well,
Hmm.
and making that connection. So even though we know business is business, you also need to have that people side.
Right. Yeah,
Important.
absolutely.
Yeah.
In scaling this company, I've been here 17 years. Much smaller when we started, and we were a different business, and we've grown and changed a whole bunch of times. Trying to figure out the business side is one thing, and it's challenging, of course. The
Yeah.
people has always been the hardest thing,
Yeah.
right? So it's as you're scaling and growing a business, and kind of from a startup into a larger company. Yeah, sure. Like I said, we're enjoyably engaged in experience. What we do is
Yeah.
hard and all that, and those kind of things. You get curveballs that you're expecting. It's the people and the personal life things that come at you where you go, "Oh man, I did not see that coming."
Yeah.
And it's a terrible time for this to be happening, but you still have to deal with it,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
we are all people.
Yeah.
Ultimately, business is a collection of people, right? So you're
Yeah.
going to have to deal with personal stuff. So it's got to be a really, really key part of how we lead.
Yeah, and it is also to be ready, right, for that. Let's just call it also a disruption, right? Because
Yeah,
everything can happen in the day to day, and that's never a good time. Let's just be honest. It's not like,
no, that's right.
oh, let's get sick that day, or let's not have
Yeah,
that container come in that day, right?
yeah, yeah.
You
No,
can't plan it, but no, I like. So I
no,
like that you like having that personal touch. I think that's important, and I'm sure that's also a piece of the bigger like culture as well within SECOM, that you have that connection.
yeah. I think it's really important, and I think it. Again, going back to our CEO fosters that. I think I foster that, and that,
Yeah,
that is a key piece of who we are.
yeah,
And just like we said before, don't be surprised when things get tough, right? Don't be
yeah.
surprised when life happens either,
No,
right? Let's not react and say, well, it's a terrible time for me that your
yeah,
dog died, or that
yeah,
your
yeah,
grandmother got sick or whatever. Hey,
yeah,
that's not my problem. Like,
yeah.
no,
No,
that's right. Life
yeah,
life happens to people. Let's let's
yeah.
let's be real, and
Yeah,
handle
and
it
support it,
appropriately.
yeah, and be there, right?
Yeah,
Because then
yeah, that's right.
then it's a two-way, right? So when you are supporting your employees, they will support you as well when
That's right.
something needs when you need to go that extra mile. So,
Yeah,
but it's
that's
it's
right.
not all companies that has that view on it. So I think it's impressive. No, it's not. I think
Yeah,
it's impressive
I've
that
I've
you
worked
are.
for some Sen. I know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This isn't accidental either. I think
No.
our business model and our leadership style,
Yeah,
kind of coming from the
yeah,
CEO,
yeah,
we've experienced so many kind of really bad situations in electronics manufacturing and manufacturing suppliers in China, and all the supply chain challenges and component
yeah,
issues and all that. We've just kind of written them all down, and said, just let's not do that to anybody, right?
yeah.
So part of our
Good.
part of our business model and our approach is going. We went through all this list
Yeah,
of bad experiences.
yeah,
Let's just not do that,
yeah,
right? It makes it pretty easy.
yeah. On paper, but you
Yes,
still
you
have to
gotta you gotta
execute it.
practice it.
Yeah, you have to practice it, right? And that's also a leadership skill that you have to learn and have that to have it in you, right? To make sure that you are seeing maybe what is not said in that conversation, or if there's something not happening, or if that person is coming to you and opening up, right? There's a lot of you have to
Yeah.
sense the moment,
Yes. Yeah.
and it's not everybody that has that capability or that skill. So good for
Yeah.
you. Good for your company.
Thank you.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah. Awesome.
last question here. So, and it's a tough one, right? Because you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what should I say? But so, Terry, if you should give yourself an advice 10 years ago, what would it be?
Yeah. Um, it is a good one. I have thought about it while we've been talking, and
Yeah.
the last thing you just said is kind of going towards, there's some intuition to it, right? There's some, emotional intelligence, whatever you want to call it, kind of some sense of what's happening. And, I'm more soft skills driven.
Yeah.
I was telling you our CEO being able to vision cast a little bit more. I think if I was giving myself some advice 10 years ago, trying to connect a little bit between the intuitive, observational connecting dots where things make sense to me in a certain way.
Yeah.
Communicating that out in a way to where people understand where I'm coming from differently, or maybe it's not, it's where I'm explaining myself better on, hey, this is what I think we should do.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole lot of context behind that. And if you don't kind of lay that groundwork and explain, well, here's how I'm viewing this situation, and here's all the data behind that supports why I'm thinking this way and suggesting we go that way.
Yeah.
I think expressing that in a more clear, constructive way, as at the beginning of a conversation, I think would be the advice I'd give myself going back, because sometimes we move so fast.
Yeah.
Right. Everything's happening all the time, and so you kind of have this thing in your head and you just go, hey, wait, we're doing this, and nobody understands why.
Yeah, because you know it, right? But you have you have to make sure to zoom out and make sure that everybody is at the same dot of where you are with all the learnings. But you are like far ahead sometimes, and you need to be sure to jump back and get everybody with you, right?
Yeah, just explain it. And that doesn't mean that what I'm thinking or the way I'm approaching it is always right. So explaining that to give the chance for all the other really smart people to come and say, well, what about this? Have you thought about that? And that makes all of us better, right? Yeah. Challenging and debating. So that's the advice I give would, how do I do a better job there would be my advice.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, great conversation. We went like all over, and even I'll cut it out. Even my dog barks, and maybe you will hear that, but I'll cut it out. So, if there's any of the listeners that want to connect with you, how can they reach out to you?
They can find secomp.com for our website, or they can find me or our company on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a really easy way to contact me.
Perfect. And I'll make sure to put the links in the show notes so it's easy from the podcast platform. And I will also put it on the episode page on leadershipinmanufacturing.com. So it will easy to find. So Terry, thank you so much. I really like the culture, because I think the culture in different countries is so important. And then just also the last thing we talked about a lot, but again, the people, right? It is the hardest thing, and it will always be. But I really like your approach.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Leadership in Manufacturing podcast. I love that you're listening. Please find us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, and be sure to subscribe and rate us. Also, follow our LinkedIn page and Instagram, and check out leadershipinmanufacturing.com for previous episodes, blog posts, and our newsletter. So let's continue this journey together to become better leaders in the electronics industry. Remember, stay curious, keep learning. See you next time.